Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. Today, well, first I'd like to talk a little bit about, Scotty, did you see those videos of Camila Valieva?
Yeah.
She just, at the time she was 15, she's 16 now, I guess.
Yeah.
Little Russian skater, figure skater. And she is magnificent. I mean, it's like a little celestial fairy or butterfly or something, just absolutely brilliant, you know. And her performances are record-breaking. And but what happened? I actually saw this. I don't know if I told you this, Scotty, but I saw this live on. I think it was CBS. I can't remember, in a competition. When and I forget the details how it all emerged, but after one of her performances, I think it was, she tested positive for some heart medication that supposedly enhances endurance, so it's prohibited, and it devastated this little kid, 15, sweet. And so her next performance, she was such a wreck, I mean, this kid is flawless, but she fell down, I think 2 or 3 times. It was just a disaster,
Yeah.
And then, so she was, a shoe-in for number 1, but she didn't even get on the podium. And her friend, as I recall, her friend, Russian skater, I think got the silver. Turned out she got the silver, and she was just crying and sobbing and despondent and beside herself, and didn't even want to receive, get on the podium or anything. And okay, so how long ago was that, Scotty? 2000? I don't know. I think it was a year or 2 ago.
Yeah, I think it was the Olympics, wasn't it, when it happened?
I don't know. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
it was the last.
I think it must have been the Olympics, but it was so heartbreaking. And to this day, they just had another hearing this month, earlier in November, 9th or 10th or something like that. They still haven't decided, and they said it's going to be a couple of months before they decide her fate. They were even entertaining the possibility of banning her from figure skating, at least the Olympics or what have you, for 4 years. I mean, the kid's 15. And she didn't know, the Russians are notorious for that, but to destroy this little kid's life, this wonderful, sweet little girl, to destroy her life, I just think it's wrong. I really do. And it just breaks my heart. Now, I get it. I mean, but who do you go after? Do you go after the victim, which I think she is really? I think in that case, she's a victim. Anyway, I just needed to talk about it. I want to talk just briefly here, and then we'll get into the essence of this podcast. You watch the news and you watch everything that's going on. You watch the wars, what's going on in Israel with Hamas and Russia and Ukraine, and everywhere you turn, there is no reason for any of it. And we have the solution. It's right there at our feet. But see, the world is focused on the surface value, doesn't really understand the essence of existence. And we're talking physics here. We're talking natural law. We're talking nature. If you're going to talk science, we wouldn't call it a fanaticism. We'd call it science, knowledge. And Vedic knowledge, like that, it's knowledge. And we have it. It's there. It's offered to us. And within that is a technology, how to clean the fishbowl. Because, we talk about how, the world is a fishbowl and all the water's polluted. All you have to do is clean it up. And we know how to do it. It's a technology. It's not cheap to build the unified field generator. And what does that mean? That means that there's this underlying source of existence, called the Veda if you want, underlying source of existence, called God if you want. And there's a technology whereby, I mean, God is always there. The unified field is always there. It doesn't go away. It's doing fine. But it's our awareness of it that starts to diminish. We become more and more focused on the surface of life, and we forget that source of life, that source of harmony, that source of coherence, that source of intelligence that can feed the whole planet, everybody, everything. No more wars, no more any of this. It's just like if you have a plant, you know, and the roots aren't being watered and there's rocks piled up on the roots and stuff, the plant will not do well. And sitting there trying to pass laws or banish wars or, okay, this is the war to end all wars and all that, it is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. The only way to help that plant is to take care of the root, feed the root. And that's what we're talking about here. Clean the fishbowl. We have the technology, and the world's just somewhere out there. It's not cheap, probably to build the whole thing, at least 150 million. By the time you're done, a couple 100 million, probably, I don't know. But somebody out there are people out there that's nothing to, organizations, that's nothing. And we stand ready to do it, you know, and that's what Mount Soma is all about. So anyway, enough of that for now. There are a couple of nice quotes out of the Upanishads that I thought I'd share. One of them says, that which is unbounded is happy. There is no happiness, generally translated as there is no happiness in the small. I preferred, I don't know, just another nice way is that there's no happiness in the bounded. Think about it. Nobody wants to be bounded. You know, you take animals at large and put them in a cage, they're bound, they're limited, and they're unhappy. And what we do by focusing on the surface, by focusing on specificity, if you will, this specific thing, this thing, that thing, this thing, this thing, is we put ourselves, you know, in a cage. We put our awareness, we put our lives in a cage of limitation. And there's no happiness in that, you know. And we try to rearrange those boundaries and those limitations to attain happiness. Now, and it doesn't work. Now, what does work is that we awaken to that level which is unbounded. And then when that awakening, when our awareness of that field, the kingdom of heaven, if you will, when we're awake to that, then we can focus, we can function within the boundaries, within the limitations, and have protective, meaningful, harmonious lives. But to try to maintain the bounded limitations of our narrow little perspectives and try to organize the whole thing, geez, it just doesn't work, you know. Here's the one from the Mandukya Upanishads I wanted to mention. This one's really, I am Atma Brahma, or I am Atma Brahma. The self is Brahma. Maybe we should get into that a little more deeply as we get more and more into the Brahma Sutras. But the point now that I think it's important to make is that you are that. And why are we even talking about the Brahma Sutras and everything? It's not an academic exercise. It's not just an intellectual exercise. You are Brahman. You are Brahman. You already are. And there's some degree of sense of that deep within yourself. Even if a person is an atheist or something, they have some sense of something that they wouldn't maybe even call divinity. Maybe they have a problem with that word. But there's some precious, some value deep inside the self. And we all feel that. Well, that's Brahman. And the thing is, how how fully do we live that? You know, that's the question. You keep popping up there, Scotty.
I didn't do anything.
Do that or do I do that? I don't know.
I didn't do anything.
Oh, you did that. Oh, okay.
I did not. No.
I didn't know you could do that. All right. Anyway, so the value of reading the Brahma Sutras, see, the Brahma Sutras have a value then to read and to reflect upon at any level of consciousness. You don't have to be in Brahman to read them and appreciate them. And even in any state, if you read them and reflect upon them, what it does is it enlivens our awareness of that place deep inside where we do sense it. And it's almost like we can feel into it more. It enlivens our awareness of it more and more. And that's what human evolution is all about. It's awakening more and more fully to that, I would say, divinity that dwells within the depth of our being. So that's the real purpose of why we're doing all this. But now, the Brahma Sutras are very, and one of my favorite quotes about the Brahma Sutras that make it so very interesting is Maharshi once said, these are the Brahma Sutras. They're not the Jagat Sutras. Jagat means world. So these sutras are all about Brahman. And we can interpret them from our own level of consciousness and to kind of turn them into Jagat Sutras. But really they're much more than that. Let me see if I can find them. Here we go. Scotty? Scott?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to be jumping around here because I have several different screens. So if there's a problem, if I mess something up, do let me know, okay?
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay. But the first one, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. And we've talked about this before, but each one of these you could talk about forever, you know? It says now, from here, is the desire to know Brahman. So what is Brahman? Well, and what does it mean now from here? Well, from the Jagat Sutra's perspective, you know, wherever you are, all of us, we have that desire. We may not even know that's what we're desiring. We may be searching for it on the surface of life, but that is what we're longing for, is to awaken to that divinity that dwells within, even though we may not be comfortable phrasing it that way. It doesn't matter. But I prefer, and we'll allude to different understandings from different levels as we go through some of these sutras. But personally, I prefer to really look at it from a very important perspective, particularly in those early stages when somebody enters Brahman consciousness. Because, like I said in the past, Brahmi Chaitanya, Brahman consciousness, it's not like, oh wow, okay, I just awoke into Brahman consciousness and did everything wonderful, and now I get it all. No. When it first happens, it's so different from what you're used to. It's like, I compare it to like you had a sock, the same sock, but it was inside out and you turn it right side out and it's completely different, you know? But it's totally the same, still the same furniture, same everything. And so the Brahma Sutras, where they really become so cherished and so needed, is in those early stages of Brahman consciousness, where it's like, what happened to me? And now, from here, is the desire to know Brahman. Okay? There's no difference between the essence of different spiritual endeavors. Really, they're all about the same thing. They're all about the desire to know Brahman. And, you know, I've lived in these mountains in Western North Carolina for over 20 years now. And I've had the opportunity to talk to, probably about a half a dozen, Off the top of my head, I can think of 5. And in every, and I'm talking about Baptist ministers, Southern Baptist ministers. And I've had the opportunity to talk to them. And at first, to be honest, I thought, oh, gee, they may, not really like what I'm doing here because, it's very, we're in the Bible Belt, and that. But in every case, in our discussions, and one in particular I can think of was very skeptical initially. What are you doing here? Blah, blah. And, but through the course of the conversation and then explaining what this is all about, what the Veda is all about, what the Brahma Sutra, I didn't mention Brahma Sutras there, but the Veda and that knowledge, they light up like light bulbs. He even asked me, that very one that at first was somewhat confrontational, asked me to come to his church and speak. And so I think it's important to understand, sometimes I think people think I'm a Hindu or something. Somebody once asked me, do you have a Christmas tree? I was like, well, yeah, of course. I'm Christian. Because why? Because religions are one foot in spirituality, the other foot in cultural integrity. I'm an American. My favorite holiday is Christmas. That's all there is to it. And I see no contradiction, no conflict. Call the Christ Spirit Christ, call it Krishna, call it whatever you want. It doesn't change what it is. Okay, so next one, Janmadasya Yataha. It says the birth, maintenance, evolution, the whole universe comes from that. Comes from what? From Brahman. Now that's interesting because really Brahman it's not really a thing. When we talk about that, and it comes from that, if it's going to be coming from something, we'd say it's coming from the unified field. It's coming from Chaitanya. So there are different levels of existence. There's the absolute, the unified field, transcendent, whatever you want to call it. And then there's different levels of relative existence, manifest existence. But really, Brahman consciousness, Brahman is not a thing in that same sense. Brahman is a level of consciousness. It's not a thing. And so Brahman is when you are aware of all those levels and how they seamlessly integrate, not as a concept, but as a direct experience. And that's why it can be so overwhelming. When you first look at your computer screen or your TV screen or whatever you're looking at right now, I talk about the pillow because there's a pillow right in the camera that uses as an example. I am that, thou art that, all of this is nothing but that. Everything is born out of that the unified field. But in the state of growing consciousness, you see that everything is that unified field. The kingdom of heaven dwells within everything, really. And so you look at the pillow, and in one sense, okay, that pillow is the totality. So in that sense, and we're using the word Brahman here, in that sense, that pillow is Brahman. And that Brahman is the one thing that's the source of everything. So see, we kind of have a tendency to use the word Brahman sort of interchangeably with Chaitanya, with the transcendent, and that's okay. But all of this is born out of Brahman. That pillow is Brahman. So all of this is born out of that pillow. And that may sound like, well, you're just playing with words there, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a direct experience where you see that pillow for what it truly is. And anything you look at, that chair, you, me, everything. And so what is the vehicle through which all that happens, it's called the Atma. The Atma. The Atma is the self. And what is the self? The self is that level we were talking about that we all sense and have some feel for. But it's the essence of existence. It's one with Chaitanya. But the beauty of it too is though that with this incredible cosmic awareness that we have, and when it's fully developed, fully awakened to, then it's called Brahman consciousness, Brahmi Chaitanya. And then you, through the self, that cosmic computer, if you will, you see that pillow is Brahman. That pillow is the source of everything. That camera is Brahman. That camera is the source of everything. And then the awareness goes out, and what all of this is like lightly etched on the face of Brahman. And what is that? It's a field of consciousness, fully conscious, it's consciousness. All of this is lightly etched on the face of consciousness. Call it God's consciousness, if you will. Call it Shiva, if you will. But it is He who even has no name, no opinion, no perspective. Just fully conscious, and all this just lightly etched on the face of that. What is it? Where is it all born out of? Where does it all come from? Without Brahman consciousness, there is no manifest existence. So in that sense, it's Brahman consciousness that's the creator. And so see how crazy it kind of becomes to try to grasp it intellectually. It can sound like a crazy ego trip or a atheistic sort of thing, or who knows. But you are the creator. It's coming right out of your consciousness, right from the Atman out. And all of this is nothing but that. And it's all born out of the Atma. Janma Jasya Yataha. Incredible. That's just the second Brahma Sutra. You with me here, Scotty?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Michael, if we look at the, like Brahma is, or you say God became aware of himself, created other, then that started that self-interacting dynamic of consciousness. And then everything is born of the universe. The universe is old, right?
The universe is what?
The universe is old. Like, let's say,
Old.
like from this is 14 billion years old.
Yeah,
They're saying,
right.
or who knows whether that number's right or whatever.
Yeah, no, I understand.
But our specific expression of that Brahma or Brahman, it has developed or evolved to a certain state. Other areas in the universe have maybe been going on longer. Is the whole idea of this interaction, is it to obviously to like get in touch with the self and realize that realization? Are other parts of the universe going off and reaching that, being that they're around longer? Or maybe I don't know if you get what I'm talking about, but are there other parts that have evolved further or of the universe, or that kind of thing?
It's all about consciousness. The unified field is consciousness. Even modern physicists, now not all of them, but a lot of them that study, they're saying the more they study unified, the more they realize what they're talking about here is just they're studying consciousness. And so the answer to that question really lies in, okay, what do we know about consciousness? Well, consciousness by its nature is conscious of itself. And so now you got two things. You got consciousness, and you got consciousness that puts itself in a box over here. Okay, I'm aware of that over there now. So duality is born. Consciousness, aware of those two things. A third thing is born. Cascades out to multiplicity, infinity. You've got the unified field. You've got the underlying basis of all existence. And so that's where multiplicity, that's where this universe comes from. But now, there's a certain, and I hope this is responsive, Scotty, but there's a certain discomfort or natural tendency for that sense of other to resolve. It's a mistake. There is no other. It's all the self. And that resolution process is called evolution, where things are naturally gravitating back to God, if you will, back to the oneness, back to the unified field. And that's everything in existence. That's what we see. Things emerge, they bubble up, they manifest, and then they return. The sun rises, the sun sets, that sort of a thing. Is that somehow responsive, Scotty?
Yeah. I guess more specifically, are there other parts of this universe that has manifested that are evolving simultaneously?
Sure. Everywhere. Yeah. Everything in the whole universe is all evolving. And at their own rates.
Right.
Every individual is evolving at their own rate. Every plant is growing at its own rate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So now here's a really interesting one. This is the third, 113. Shastra Yoni Tavat. Shastra, scripture, it's like Brahman, the unified field, is the source of scripture. Well, we have this self-interacting dynamic, and it's lively. And then, for those of you who heard my podcast about, God and how God and being and how it's emerged out of the absolute. What we have then is we have unboundedness, and then as it wells up and then goes into manifestation, it manifests as point values, as things, as fundamental building blocks of manifest existence. And those fundamental building blocks of manifest existence are sounds. And that's what the Sanskrit alphabet is. It's those sounds as they emerge out of the absolute as the fundamental building blocks of existence. And that's called scripture, but we're not talking Jagat Sutras here, we're talking Brahma Sutras here. So what is the experience of that? What is scripture in that highest sense? Everything in creation is constructed out of those fundamental building blocks, which are the sounds of the Sanskrit language, the sounds then of the Veda, because that's what the Veda is. It's a sequential unfoldment of those sounds. And so that is scripture. So this is scripture. That chair is scripture. It's all scripture. Scripture, why? Because it's a manifestation of those fundamental building blocks of existence. We're taking a step back and looking at those fundamental pieces one at a time, Gani, or what have you. It's different than all the different things they can construct. So that pillow is all built of the fundamental building blocks of existence, which is scripture. Now, why is the pillow different from the chair? Well, that's called the chundas value. It hides. In other words, that pillow is the totality. And you can, in Brahman consciousness, you see that. That pillow is it. But simultaneously, you see the pillow is just a pillow. How can that be? It's because you see both. You see it on its most fundamental level. Put your attention there it is. You see it as just a pillow, put your attention there it is. And what's the difference? The difference is the chundas value. All the different impulses, the totality of existence, everything that ever is, was, or will be, is there. But most of it is hidden away so that what emerges are just those components of the fundamental building blocks that emerge as pillowness, this pillow. Does that make sense, Scotty?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. And just imagine you awaken to that. It's not like, oh, great, I get it. No. It's what the heck happened to me? Am I nuts? What is going on here? And that's what the Brahma Sutras, that's where they really become valuable. Brahman is a source of scripture. It's just simple, now from that perspective, with that understanding, okay? The next one, Tatu Samanvayat, beautiful. It says that is from harmony. So this becomes a very interesting thing. If you take all the different impulses of existence, all those different pieces, all those different fundamental building blocks, and bring them together in a unified whole, what have you got? You've got Brahman. See, it goes either way. Is Brahman the source of all of that? Or is all that the source of Brahman? It goes either way. And why? Because harmony. The whole thing is so seamlessly harmonious, built right out of the unified field, if you will. So it's only when you can experience harmony on that level, the direct experience, that pillow is it, that chair is it. Only when that isn't just a concept, but as a direct experience, you really fully understand Brahman. Otherwise, it's just too far out. But why are we talking about this? Because talking about it helps enliven your awareness of it. You are it. It's just a matter of awakening to it. And talking about this, it's a little bit like, well, I don't know, this is pretty tangential, but that movie, The Matrix, where everybody's living in an illusion and it's generated by some machine, and they don't really know who they really are because it's all determined by the illusion created by the Matrix. But somehow there's a sense, an inner sense. I don't know if that helps or not. That's, I guess, your relationship with that movie, if you've ever even seen it. The next one, Ikshatirna Shabdam. Oh, this is beautiful. Because of cognition, it's because of cognition that all of this isn't, and the Brahman isn't opposed to scripture. So what is cognition? When we think of cognition, we think of, the ancient rishis cognize the Veda, and that's true. But cognition, we're talking about Brahma Sutras here. We're talking about the experience of Brahman. And in that case, what is it about that pillow that you look at that pillow and it's Brahman, it's God, it's called cognition. So everything in that level of life, anything you look at, it's all cognition. And you're cognizing what? You're cognizing Brahman. Or you can go the other way, you're cognizing pillow, as a subset of Brahman. It goes both ways. And so what you cognize is not opposed to scripture. In fact, it is scripture, you could say. Making sense there, Scotty?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good. The next one. Gonashchanatma Shabdat. My Sanskrit, I can read it, but it takes me a little while. Gonashchanatma Shabdat. What that says, it's not secondary. What's not secondary? Cognition is performed by the Atma. It's if you can, you see that because you are the Atma. And the Atma is one with the totality. And so what you cognize, it's not secondary to Brahman because it is Brahman. It's all the self. It's all the self. It's all the Atma. There's nothing outside of it. Make sense, Scotty?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to do, let's see, how many more do I want to do here? 1, 2. Yeah, let's see if we can get up to 110. And which one do we just do? Okay, we just did Ganashchan Tanatma Shabdak. Okay. Tanistasha Moksho Padesha. Okay. Excuse my Sanskrit pronunciation. It's not great, but I'm working on it. A lot of it has to do with the structure of the mouth too, you know, how the muscles are developed by speaking in English or whatever. Oh, this is beautiful. Here it talks about liberation. And it said, oh God, it's just so good. It says, how do I want to say this? Okay, let's go back to Brahma Sutras, not Jagat Sutras. Somebody just entered Brahman consciousness, and it's overwhelming. They hardly know what to do with it. They can hardly stand up. But the key word here really, we can say, is teachings. Because, you know, traditionally the Brahma Sutras or the Guru or whatever comes along and says, okay, be cool, everything's fine. And then they give them a Mahavajra, for example, Tamasi, you are that, thou art that, or whatever. But the point is, there's a teaching that goes on there. And it leads to liberation. Or another, so what is teaching though in a higher sense? Yes, for sure, you know, the words of the Brahma Sutras, whatever, but the Guru, whatever, but, you know, we talk about how life is the greatest teacher. Well, now we're talking Jagat Sutras, worldly sutras. But what does life being the greatest teacher mean from on the level of Brahma Sutras, on the level of Brahman, it means that you have to get used to it. And to get used to it is to live it. And the living of it is the teachings. You start to figure out, if you will, just by living and so it's life's teachings in that sense, even though it's for sure, the Brahma Sutras, Brahman movement, all like that. But it's through those teachings that you rest into it, that you can even start to accept who you are, what you have become, even though you always were it. It's almost like liberation comes from owning it. Liberation comes from getting comfortable with it. And it's a process. It can take decades. It could be a whole life and not even happen where that full liberation is really experienced, because the whole thing is so overwhelming. And that's why the value of a real teacher can really speed up that process, because otherwise it's disconcerting, It's a beautiful sutra. It's a beautiful sutra. And the deeper meaning of the word teachings is so critical there, It's really interesting that it says 118, there's no, in the state of liberation, there is no separation, it's all one. And so and again, that speaks to, because that's even an early Brahman consciousness. Then you look at, that's it, that's me, I'm that. I'm one with that, I'm one with that, I'm one with that, I'm one with the totality, one with Hiranyagarbha, I'm one with all of it. But when you're living on that level, and when you rest into it, that's real liberation. And that's, so in that sense, on that level, there's no word for separation, because there is no separation. I hope that helps. Svapyayat. That's, what is that? Svapyayat. Svapyayat. Yeah, that's it. On the count of coming into one's own. Well, I think that's pretty clear for our purposes, at least now. I mean, again, any one of these you could spend forever on. But let's do this last one. Gati samanyat. Gati samanyat. Oh, this is beautiful. It talks about motion. Oh, this is so good. This is so important. There's motion. What happened? You look at the pillow and it's God. Then you look at the pillow and it's just a pillow. There's a motion there. Or maybe in some sense, I don't know, just so beautiful. He who has no name, pure unbounded consciousness, the witness, if you will. No opinion, no nothing. Just fully aware, fully conscious. Shiva value, you would say, the Christ spirit, perhaps you'd say. But your awareness can go from that to the pillow is a pillow, or to the pillow is God. And there's a sameness of motion there. And what happens between those two things is through the gap. And we've talked about the gap. See, oftentimes we think of scripture as just the letters of the Veda, The rest of the scripture, the rest of the Veda is in the gap. And that's where the totality exists. It dips into the absolute and then dips back out into a point value. Dips into the absolute, unbounded, eternal, everything. Comes back out to point value like that. And there's a sameness in that motion. This and that, they're the same. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. And there's a pillow and there's me. I am that pillow. That pillow is me. I am the universe. The universe is me. Which way does it go? Doesn't matter. It goes both ways. There's a seamlessness to it. They both proceed in the direction of the other. Does that make sense, Scotty?
Yes.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's just beautiful. You know, there's a word commonly used with respect to all this called Pasha. Pasha just means see. Just see. That's all it should, just see. But the ability to see like that is structured in consciousness. It's not an attitude. It's not like, let me squint and maybe I'll see it better. Pasha. But in early stages of Brahman consciousness, it's like, what the heck am I seeing here? This is just unbearable. And so the Brahma Sutras, you know, they sort all that out. And it's all about the Atman. It's all about the observer. It's all about Brahman. Without the seer, there's no universe. The seer is the creator. The seer is Brahman. Well, we could go on and on, Scotty. It looks like we've been going on for a while here. Anything else before we adjourn for the day, Scotty?
No, that's a lot. So.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Well, if I can find my way, here we go. All right. So that's all for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Feedback is always appreciated. You can write the school. If you can't find a way to comment on these podcasts, you can write the school and they'll get the message to me. Talk to you again next week.